Well, today the topic is maintaining relationships. To be a success in any aspect of life, we need to spend a great deal of time in maintaining relationships with others, with God, and with ourselves. The other day I was doing a job at a 6,000 square foot multi-million dollar home. And the owner who's selling the place in and came in and out a number of times, packing up his last few items. He told me, Mark, I moved 75 boxes all by myself. And I said, well, that's good. And every time I walked past him, he wanted to talk and start up a mini conversation. And I could tell this was a guy who loved talking to people. And I asked him what he'd done for a living. And he said that he worked 35 years at a car dealership. And I figured he must have owned that dealership in order to live in the house that he was living in. And of course, this is in the most coveted gated community in Colorado Springs. And later that day, the realtor who was selling that house told me that he was just being humble when he said he worked at the dealership, but he was in fact a CEO of 35 dealerships that were under one head. And I asked him to tell me his story, and the man told me that he wanted to be a teacher since he was a child, and he went to college and got a degree for teaching. Then he got drafted and got sent to Vietnam. And when he came back, there were so many teachers that he could not find a job. He traveled all over the country, and he was married by then. And so he got a job working in a car lot as a car salesman. And within 2 years, he was so good at selling cars, he figured out some way to do it that they made him the trainer to train everybody in that organization how to sell these cars. So I asked him what his secret to success was. And he said it's simple. The secret to success in sales is maintaining relationships. He said most salesmen wait for someone to walk in order to sell a car. He said that those people will typically sell 7 to 8 cars a month. He said I sold consistently over 21 cars a month. And he said that he constantly stayed in, and he said that his trick was he constantly stayed in touch with his past clients. And he said it's all about maintaining relationships. He said that it takes a lot of time and effort to stay in touch with hundreds of people on a monthly basis. And this is before the internet, and then transitioned into that. And he said most salesmen just won't take the time. They just want someone to come in and buy a car. He said the way I succeeded was taking time to maintain relationships. And it really stuck with me. It got me thinking. And, people want to be remembered. They will pay you to remember them. And it pays to remember them if they're your wife or husband or girlfriend, boyfriend, something like that. See, maintaining relationships are what makes us a success in any aspect of life, whether friendship, marriage, or business. See, love is what fuels any relationship. Love remembers. Quote, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Maya Angelou. People will never forget how you made them feel. And don't you love being around people who love being around you? Yeah. I was at someone's house on Friday night, invited to a dinner. And it was, this person just was they kept talking about the people they were going to invite because they enjoyed them so much. And I thought, and then at the dinner, the person and after they just kept talking and including these people. This gentleman and his wife loved the people that they invited, and it was obvious. There's somebody who understands this, and isn't that why people have pets? You go home and there's a big tail wagging and something's trying to jump up on you even when it's not supposed to. I mean, that's how people like dogs, because the dogs are excited every time they see you. And imagine if we could do that without jumping on people and licking them. How much better our relationships would be if we could just learn from the dog. I mean, I saw a bumper sticker last week about instead of about dogs being man's best friend. And the more I live, the more I realize in a lot of cases people love their pets more than their people. And I was in a house. I walked into a house yesterday, and this 60-pound puppy was so excited to see me. I thought it was literally going to jump out of its skin. And the owner just grabbed it, as it was leaping towards me by the collar, and just had to talk it down. They're trying to train it to be a service dog. And I thought, I don't know, it made me a little too hyper for that. I don't know. But it was crazy excited. But it made me feel special, like I was the most important person in that house. And but that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants to feel welcome. Everybody wants to feel necessary. Everybody wants to feel special. And the sooner we learn that in a marriage, in a friendship, in business relationships, the sooner we will prosper in any of the above. I think in order to live a healthy, balanced life, we need to consistently maintain a relationship with ourselves, with others, and with God. And the reason I say ourselves, sometimes we treat ourselves worse than we treat other people. We say horrible things within our own minds. Some don't, but some do. I've done it. And it just shouldn't. It should not be that way. That shouldn't be something that we do. We should treat we always hear that statement. Treat others like you want to be treated, right? But I think we need to treat ourselves like we would treat other people if we're good folks. Matthew 7:12 from the Message says, "Here is a simple rule of thumb, guide for behavior. Ask yourself what you want people to do for you. Then grab the initiative and do it for them. Add up God's law and prophets, and this is what you get." Love is giving. Giving is a way to build relationships. Caring, being interested in them, being excited to actually see somebody, to gush about them when they're behind their back and not do the other, not gossip. It's not easy to do. This verse I just read describes all three. It talks about yourself, others, and God. That's love in action. Those three have to be interconnected, really. I was talking to a lady who worked on Wall Street, and one of the people in here, their sister, and she said that there was one group of people that has great difficulty passing the Series 7 exam, which is what it takes to get into selling securities. And I said, well, what's group is that? And she said, well, now this is her observation, okay? Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But she said that so many people that are of the Arab Muslim background, they cannot pass the ethics part of that test because they've been taught totally different. It's a totally different set of ethics they were raised with than we're raised with. So they have great difficulty unless they just memorize it. Whereas to me, that's the easiest part of that because it's just logic. But people don't think the same. You know, it's like that thing I heard when I was a kid. It was in some movie I saw, the code of the West is to do unto others before they do it unto you. You know, that's the code of, you know, the world, basically. And here's a quote. Everyone has an invisible sign hanging from their neck saying, "Make me feel important." Never forget this message when working with people. Mary Kay Ash. Here's another quote. I never forget a face, but in your case, I'll be glad to make an exception. Groucho Marx. All kidding aside, the beauty of life is found when we build and maintain relationships. And if those relationships turn into friendships, so much the better. Imagine having just 100 friends or 500 friends. I mean, that would be nice. Here's a record that's going to give us a couple of pointers of how to build relationships within ourselves, with others, and with God. And this is probably the first letter ever written to the early Christians. This is about 54 AD. And it was written by the half-brother of Jesus. And it sort of has the tone and the style of Jesus' style of talking. And it's the book of James, chapter 2. And we're going to read verses 14 through 24. I'm going to read it from the Message. Verse 14, James 2. Dear friends, do you think you'll get anywhere in this if you learn all the right words but never do anything? Does merely talking about your faith indicate that a person really has it? For instance, you come upon an old friend dressed in rags and half-starved and say, "Good morning, friend. Be clothed in Christ. Be filled with the Holy Spirit." And you walk off without having provided so much as a coat or a cup of soup? Where does that get you? Isn't it obvious that God talk without God acts is outrageous nonsense? I love that phrase. God talk without God acts is outrageous nonsense. See, belief and action must be married. And to speak truth and not follow up with action makes us a fake, a phony. And we've seen a lot of religious people like that. It's just for show. It's just talk, and no action. You know, if someone asks you to pray for them, do you remember? And I think, you know, are they important enough? You know, would you like to know that others would pray for you if you ask them? Then why don't we reciprocate in kind? I think about Josephine, you know how often she'll think about somebody and she'll send them a text, she'll give them a call, she'll write them a note, and I think how important that is. And like I've said before, usually when you think about it is the time to do it, because the next day you never feel like it, because God knows the timing of all this. You know, we're all in this whole thing called life together. Doesn't mean everything you think is from God, but something that's good, hey, why not? Sure can't go wrong. Verse 18. I can already hear one of you agreeing by saying, "Sounds good. You take care of the faith department and I'll handle the works department." Not so fast. You can no more show me your works apart from your faith than I can show you my faith apart from my works. Faith and works, works and faith, fit together hand in glove. Do I hear you professing to believe in the one and only God, but then observe you complacently sitting back as you had done something wonderful? That's just great. Demons do that. And what good does it do them? Use your heads. Do you suppose for a minute that you can cut faith and works in two and not end up with a corpse on your hands? Wasn't our ancestor Abraham made right with God by works when he placed his son Isaac on the sacrificial altar? Isn't it obvious that faith and works are yoked partners? That faith expresses itself in works? I like that. That the works are works of faith. The meaning of believe in the scripture sentence, Abraham believed God and was set right with God, includes his action. Is that mesh of believing and acting that got Abraham named God's friend? Is it not evident that a person is made right with God not by barren faith, but by faith fruitful in works? I mean, Abraham was called the friend of God. I mean, he jumped on God and licked his face, you know? I mean, that's sort of the mind picture. I mean, it's like, yeah. I mean, he was excited. Whereas a lot of people, it's just, it doesn't make any sense, God, because they don't think of him as a real being, a presence. Let me see. When we believe, when we're committed to build a relationship, if we want to build a relationship, then we have to act on that. What are we doing to encourage that relationship? You see, if we do that, then we're going to build something that lasts, like that guy I talked to who was a great salesman. I mean, he worked it and worked it and worked it. He said, I'd stay late. I'd make my calls. I wrote my letters. I'd come in on Saturday. He worked it every year. And he's retired. He retired fairly young, and he has houses all over the country, this guy. All because he maintained relationships. Now, even if you're not a salesman, that works. If you are a salesman, it's a necessity. You ever heard that the grass is greener on the other side? It's a great one, but I think the grass is greener if you water it. Just like a relationship. Here in Colorado, if you don't water your lawn, what's going to happen? It's going to go away. It's going to go away. So if you don't nurture a friendship, a relationship, what happens? It goes away. There's so many studies on this. Like in sales, it's the 80-20 principle. It's 20% of your clients will give you 80% of your income. And the people who build a larger base are going to have a bigger income. It's just the way life goes. It's all numbers. They've done so many scientific studies on this, but it works. It'll work. You want more friends, and be more friendly. Don't encourage licking people. Here's a quote. Do you want to know who you are? Don't ask. Act. Action will delineate and define you. Thomas Jefferson. Action delineates and defines us. That's who we are. It's how we act is who we are. Actions speak louder than words. All these things that people have known for a long time. Here's another quote. When it is obvious that the goals cannot be reached, don't adjust the goals, adjust the action steps. Confucius. What's your goal? Where are you going? What are we doing in this thing called life? Now, the context here is relationships. If it's just not working one way, maybe we need to change gears a little bit. You know, Josephine's mom used to, tell her, you need to smile. And Josephine's a very smiley person now, but her mom trained her and told her, instead of being a grumpy little Italian girl, how to be a happy little Italian girl. See, action, here's another quote. Action is the foundational key to all success. Pablo Picasso. He did things with painting, whether you like his artwork or not, but he did things for painting that no one had ever done. Like he would use high gloss house paint. He would use all kinds of different mediums to make his pictures look different or more bold or whatever than other people. He was innovative, but he said action is the foundational key to all success. Do something. And watch how watch how Jesus lays out how to take care of people. It seems easy, but it's taking care of people and maintaining relationships is a difficult task, because sometimes people, they're nice to you, and other times they're not. Sometimes they're frenemies, that term from the 80s or whatever. Sometimes, people that are closest to us, will hurt us the most. It's always the case. So in Luke chapter 6, we're going to read 26 through 38 from the Message. There's trouble ahead when you live only for the approval of others, saying what flatters them, doing what indulges them. Popularity contests are not truth contests. Look how many scoundrel preachers were approved by your ancestors. Your task is to be true, not popular. Now we're going to see what it takes to be true, to think and act true. And here's how we ready ourselves to live a fulfilling life. Verse 27, to you who are ready for the truth, I say this, love your enemies. Let them bring out the best in you, not the worst. When someone gives you a hard time, respond with the energies of prayer for that person. If someone slaps you in the face, stand there and take it. If someone grabs your shirt, gift wrap your best coat and make a present of it. If someone takes unfair advantage of you, use the occasion to practice the servant life. No more tit-for-tat stuff. Live generously. Now, is that easy to do? No, that's hard. That's very hard. Here's a quote. In dwelling, live close to the ground. In thinking, keep to the simple. In conflict, be fair and generous. In governing, don't try to control. In work, do what you enjoy. In family life, be completely present. Lao Tzu, an ancient Chinese philosopher. Be completely present. I mean, you ever talk to somebody and they're looking at their watch or, glancing all, you could tell they don't want to talk to you. Well, see, that's not being present. And when we find ourselves doing that, change it. Maybe if you get a client coming in, turn your phone off. Set it aside. Do something. Make them feel like they are the most important person in your life. Don't give unsolicited advice. I fall into that trap. You walk in and start telling people what you think, and they don't want to hear that. I went into a house the other day. I'm embarrassed to even say this, but they were moving in. They just bought this house and were moving in. And I was doing work before they moved in, and I said, And they were going, I'm not sure what kind of color we want to paint this. I said, well, I talked about the color of money. Like one of my friends who's a realtor tells us, a lot of houses now, they're all painted a certain color. It's popular right now. And so I was mentioning that, and I was telling them sort of the color and all that, and they were listening. And then I looked right at my feet, and they had a whole different color that they were going to paint their house. And they were nice to me, but I thought, how stupid. If I had just looked around and just saw the cans of paint stacked up right in front of me, I wouldn't have embarrassed myself. Now, they were kind, but it's like I thought they didn't ask for that burst of information. I wasn't aware. I wasn't present. It's good to be a good friend. We need to be generous and completely present. To be a good salesperson, you have to be completely present. Sometimes, it's that old saying, listen more than you talk. 2 ears, 1 mouth rule. Listen twice as much as you talk. It's hard to do if you like to talk. And it's funny how many people, once you get them talking, they love talking about themselves. And even if you don't say a word, that will be the greatest conversation of their day. People love it. And so if you like to talk about yourself, then get them talking about themselves. Be present. Verse 31, here's a simple rule of thumb for behavior. Ask yourself what you want people to do for you. Then grab the initiative and do it for them. If you only love the lovable, do you expect a pat on the back? Run-of-the-mill sinners do that. If you only help those who help you, do you expect a medal? Garden variety sinners do that. If you only give for what you hope to get out of it, do you think that's charity? The stingiest of pawnbrokers do that. I tell you, love your enemies. Help and give without expecting a return. You'll never, I promise, regret it. Live out this God-created identity the way our Father lives toward us, generously and graciously, even when we're at our worst. Our Father is kind. You be kind. Here's a quote, feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. William Arthur Ward. If you feel like saying something good to somebody and you should, then say it. If you feel like doing a kind act to somebody, then do it. You're never the loser in giving. So many of you have given to me in so many ways. Multiple ways. I'm bettered by it. I'm changed by it. You have been such a great example to me. Verse 37, don't pick on people. Jump on their failures. Criticize their faults, unless, of course, you want the same treatment. Don't condemn those who are down. That hardness can boomerang. Be easy on people. You'll find life a lot easier. Give away your life. You'll find life given back. But not merely given back with bonus and blessing. Giving, not getting, is the way. Generosity begets generosity. There's that key to receiving again. There's that key to success. We do it to ourselves. We just give ourselves the very best. Pamper yourself. Take care of yourself, your mind especially. And then other people. My God, what else are we on earth to do anyway? In this short life. It's really to bless other people. It's to do God's job on earth. We're ambassadors for Christ. See, love is giving. You ever heard the term legacy? Ever hear the term legacy? And notice how every president towards the end of his term tries to manipulate their legacy. And, they they get libraries built, and they keep talking about all their accomplishments because that's what they want people to think about them and to remember them for, or the history books to say something about. Quote, now this is about legacy. Quote, if I have to be remembered for something, I want it remembered that I really liked children and was a good camp counselor. Francis Ford Coppola. It's unexpected. Didn't he do the Godfather? Quote, I wish it to be remembered that I was the last man in my tribe to surrender my rifle. Sitting Bull, American Indian chief. That's how he wants to be remembered. He was the last one to surrender his gun. Everybody wants to be remembered. They spend great lengths many times to figure out what they want on their headstone. Sometimes people figure it out before they die, what they want written. Some people even write their own obituaries long before because that's what they want written about them. Might be a smart way to do it. He was a nice guy. Next. What will people say about you? Remember that whole teaching about the cross of Christ, and how basically everybody had one word or one phrase that summed up their life. I was a murderer. I was a thief. The king of the Judeans. Whatever. Something. It just defines it. What defines us? What defines the people that we want in our lives? Here's another one, quote, I would like to be remembered as a man who had a wonderful time living life. A man who had good friends, fine family, and I don't think I could ask for anything more than that, actually. Frank Sinatra. He did it his way. Right? Quote, if all I'm remembered for is being a good basketball player, then I've done a bad job with the rest of my life. Isaiah Thomas. How will you be remembered? A little over 100 years ago, a man opened the morning newspaper when he was visiting Caen, France. And to his surprise, he saw his own name in the obituary column. And the newspaper had erroneously reported his death when in actuality it was his brother who died. And this guy was shocked. And after collecting his thoughts, he read his obituary because he wanted to see what the writers said about him. And the obituary read, Dynamite King dies. The French paper also said, the merchant of death is dead. It went on to say that he was the man who became rich by finding ways to kill more people faster than ever before, died yesterday. This man was the guy who invented dynamite. And his product had helped with mining and road building, but it had also been used in the military. This is from the 1800s. And to kill many thousands of people. And he became unbelievably rich because of this invention of dynamite. And he wondered, is this how I'm going to be remembered? Dynamite King. Is that my legacy? Is that all there is to who I am? And he decided to change his image because that's not the way he really thought of himself. That's not the way he wanted to be remembered. And so from that day on, he started working toward peace. And he donated over 90% of his massive fortune to found an award that we know today called the Nobel Peace Prize. This guy's name was Albert Nobel. And, what's your legacy? How do you want to be remembered? And if it's not the way that you think, maybe it's time to switch things up again. Maintain your customer base. Maintain your friends. Maintain your relationships. See, similar to how that money a salesman will make is in direct proportion to the relationships he nourishes. The richness of our life will be found in the relationships that we build and maintain. That's who we really are, is who you are with others. How do you make people feel? Are they excited when they see you? Are you excited to see them? The other day, I was taking pictures with my wife, and we took a whole bunch of them because it was our 35th anniversary. Sorry, 36th anniversary. I blew that one too. And in every picture, I got there and I thought I was putting on a real good smile. In every picture, I looked like I wasn't smiling at all. And told Josephine, I said, in my mind, I felt like I was smiling. And she said, you got to just go overboard, And I thought, it's almost like I have to be melodramatic if I'm really I have to make myself smile. But I really felt happy, and I felt like I was smiling, but the pictures did not.
You show it.
They didn't show it. So, what's my legacy? All people have a mythology of who they think they are, including me, including you. And the faster we learn who that person thinks they are, the faster we can build a relationship. Because people want to be understood. And if we don't know who they are, we don't understand them. We don't connect with them. And here's a blog from Seth Godin, and he titled it, "A Legend in My Own Mind." Quote, "Everyone lives with self-mythology. The more important a memory is to the story we tell ourselves about ourselves, the more we rehearse the memory. And the more often we relive those memories, the less likely it is that they are true. Despite our shared conception that we are rational actors making intelligent decisions based on an accurate view of the world and ourselves, precisely the opposite is true. Your customers, your workers, you and I, we are all figments of our imagination. Understanding the mythology of your partner, your customer, and your audience is far more important than watching the instant replay of what actually happened." End of quote. Everybody lives at some level of self-mythology. You ever notice how the stories that you say, they change over the years? And then you talk to a sibling and they go, "That's not how that was." And you think, of course it was. But you've just bettered that story as time went on. I listened to a book on tape. It was about a World War II guy who was bombed. He was in a bomber and got shot down, and he was traveling. The patriots that were for the Allied forces, they kept whisking this guy along and protecting him. And he told this whole story. And it was really fun. It was called "An Old Man in a Baseball Hat." And at the very end of the book, he says, "Now, I don't really know if everything I said really actually happened." He says, "But that's what I think. It's my story." Sort of like that saying, "It's my story and I'm sticking to it." Over these years, he was like 80 years old by the time he wrote this thing. And so it was a whole, he said maybe that wasn't really how it happened, but he said that's how I remember it. And that's self-mythology. And I think that's how we can keep ourselves sane at times, I mean, because someone's life throws all kinds of curves. And so we have to understand this about people too. Is we have to figure out who they think they are. Isn't that what all advertising plays to? I mean, they want to train people to think they are something different. More sexy, more glamorous, more needy, more sick, more something, so they can sell that product. If you didn't know about half the things that were out there, you wouldn't want them. Like the Sky Mall magazine that just ended it's no longer. It's in in the airplane seats. And you look at that and go, oh, I need that. I like that. It's this massage chair or this thing or something for your dog or cat or a never-ending, pool that you can swim in. And I mean, it's crazy. You look at it and you go, God, that's a great idea. I could use one of those. Of course, I never bought anything on it, but it sure looked good. Sort of the sham wow thing. Things that were so popular at one time, it doesn't matter now. That's advertising. But how do we interact? How do we understand the psyche of a person? Well, we get to know them. We maintain that relationship. Final verse I want to share is Ecclesiastes 12:13, and I'm going to read it from the Amplified. And it says, all has been heard. The end of the matter is, fear God, revere and worship him, knowing that he is, and keep his commandments, for this is the whole of man, the full original purpose of his creation, the object of God's providence, the root of character, the foundation of all happiness, the adjustment to all inharmonious circumstances and conditions under the sun, and the whole duty for every man. Bottom line, it always boils down to loving others like God loves us. And that's truth. I mean, we tell ourselves truth. And that's the best fuel that we could ever put into our minds. When my daughter was little, story I've shared before, we had this riding lawnmower. We had this acre yard. And so she would like to drive, I'd undo the blade and I'd let her drive this around the yard like it was a go-kart or something. And she thought it was the funnest thing in the world. Well, then other kids started wanting to ride the thing. And I didn't mind as long as the blade wasn't spinning, and maybe I should have got him to mow my yard. But, they wanted to ride. Well, one time they ran it out of gas. And they grabbed this blue gas can that I kept next to my house and filled it up. And then it just went, just a big poof of black smoke, and it wouldn't run. And the little boys ran off, and Danielle came in crying, I broke the mower. I said, what did you do? Well, I put gas in it. What kind of gas? Well, from the blue can. I said, that's kerosene. I said, that's not the fuel that runs it. Then I had to drain it. It wasn't that hard to do. But the point is, it's the right fuel for the right machine. It's the right fuel. What's the right fuel for our mind? It's the positives of the word. It's any positives. It all boils down to loving others like God loves us. See, Albert Nobel was worried that his legacy would be nothing more than the inventor of dynamite. And he changed that. And because of his change and his lavish donation, he has inspired others to pursue discovery and literature and science, all these Nobel Prizes, including the Nobel Peace Prize, which is what he's most famous for now. See, we better ourselves as we continue to walk in love, even to the unlovable. Maintain your relationships with people. Never let them go. In sales, they always say it's much easier to to keep a client than to find a new one. They say that you spend between 7 and 30 times as much money in finding new clients as in retaining one, depending on the business. What about friends? Maintain your friendship base. Maintain your family. If you haven't called your family in a while, give them a call. Stay in touch. It's one short life. See, that master salesman, he proposed that to the degree he built and maintained relationships with his customers was to the degree he prospered. And he proved it to himself. He told me that there was one salesman that they had that you had to literally make appointments for him to sell you a car. He wouldn't take any walk-ins. He didn't need them. He said this guy could sell cars. And he said he's the guy he learned these principles from. Is you just maintain and work that customer base. So work your base of relationships and you will be bettered for it. See, let's master the art of maintaining relationships. God bless.